Welcome to the Huddle Up Podcast, your go-to show for all things Broncos.
Once again, Broncos country, it is time to huddle up. I am Carl Dumler, and with me as always, we have Nick Kendell. This show's focus is all things that pertain to your Denver Broncos, with an extra focus on the NFL draft. Nick and I will continue to talk general Broncos news, but today will be one of our last episodes this year that is draft heavy. We will still stand by our statement, though, that building teams in April is arguably as fun as the actual games on Sunday. Follow myself on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH, as well as follow Nick at Nick Kendell MHH. And of course, tweet us as much as you like, and follow the podcast account at HuddleUp_MHH. You can also find ours and our co-writers' content at milehighhuddle.com, a part of Scout.com, an affiliate of Scout Media and the CBS Sports Digital Network. We know you listeners are as football and Bronco crazy as we are, so please give us a click and subscribe to us on iTunes, as well as iHeart, Stitcher, SoundCloud, CastBox, and Spreaker. Don't forget to share us on Facebook and Twitter. We wouldn't be here today without you listeners, so please take the time to rate and subscribe to let your voices be heard on how you enjoy the show. Today, we are going to wrap up our deep dive into the Broncos draft picks, and this is kind of a bittersweet for Nick and I because, we've put in a lot of hours into this draft. And so to kind of be wrapping up this draft, it just kind of feels like such an interesting closing to everything. Are you feeling the same thing, Nick?
It is bittersweet. Absolutely. After putting in so many hours in the combine and all these players have been selected and reviewing how all the players fit. But honestly, I'm ready for some real football, and I am ready for starting to talk about the 2018 class, honest to God. I mean, I've already started watching tape today. Well, not today, but just recently I started watching a little bit of Derwin James of Florida State. My God, that guy is phenomenal. I'm sorry, we're already talking 2018, but Jesus, unbelievable, this kid. He was hurt last year, but he might be the best safety I've ever seen. I sent out a joke tweet today, because right now it's 2018, who knows what happens. We might have the first pick next year. I don't think we will, but you never know. So it's fun to think about all the possibilities, and I did sent out a tweet. It's like the upgrade meme. You have a picture of somebody and somebody hits the upgrade button and then it's something better. And it was TJ Ward, who I love, but I had TJ Ward hit the upgrade button and then Derwin James. And if you thought the no-fly zone was incredible, this year and last year, you sub out TJ Ward for arguably I think he's probably going to end up being one of the best safety prospects since Sean Taylor and Derwin James. And my goodness.
Oh man. Yeah. No, I saw that they're trying to sign TJ Ward to an extension. So that could be an interesting development and really change how we go about the 2018 draft, because that would be a hole on this defense if he possibly left, unless one of our young guys steps up. And I know you're pretty high on some of our young guys too. And but before we get into 2018, let's finish up here with 2017, our final 3 picks, and then maybe we'll talk a little bit about some undrafted free agents. But today, Isaiah McKenzie, our last pick in the 5th round. They call him the human joystick. Then, of course, we have the other Henderson. And, of course, Mr. Swag himself, Chad Kelly. And, man, there's nobody quite like this kid. I don't know many other players that have their own rap song. And Bronco fans, you're going to get to enjoy that here on this podcast here today. Nick has graciously decided to add that for you for your listening pleasure.
Swag. Don't shoot up someplace so when you're listening to it. That's all I can
say. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah. His story is so back and forth. It's almost like it could be a Hollywood story in the end. I don't know. It'll be interesting. But before we get to him, let's talk about Isaiah McKenzie, wide receiver of Georgia. Like I said, the human joystick was the nickname he was given in high school. What can you tell me about this kid?
Well, he is dynamic in space and is going to remind Bronco fans a lot of Trindon Holiday. Just right off the bat, the easy comparison for recent Broncos. Obviously a dynamic special teams player, especially a returner. And I'm curious if they are going to implement him into the offense or if he's going to be more of a niche special teams guy. But still, with how horrible we were with returns last year with Norwood and even trying Latimer and Taylor, double dipping with some returners, and Langley, who's been a solid returner, Henderson, who's been an amazing returner, and now McKenzie. You have to enjoy the excitement that's going to bring on special teams. I'm excited just listening to Olivo. Did you see his talk today in the press conference?
I didn't get to see it, but I've had some people tweet me and a few other things and message me on Facebook about, you need to watch this thing. And I just haven't had time yet today, but he's a ball of energy.
Oh my God.
Our entire offensive coaching staff, really, other than McCoy. McCoy's kind of that like complete opposite, like, he's going to completely keep a straight face or he's going to look like he's angry all the time. But the other ones, yeah, they're just a ball of energy. And especially Olivo, you could tell he just is so excited for this opportunity. And
I was about ready to charge the shore or something. Like, seriously, I was like, man, I'm going to need to hit somebody.
Yeah, I could see him becoming an offensive a head coach pretty soon, just because of that excitement. Like, he's going to really sell it. If he ever gets a chance for an interview, people are going to be like, I like this guy. Like I said, people are just going to want to run through a wall for this guy. And I'm excited to see what he brings to the team.
Yeah, I was a big, I wouldn't say a proponent. I'm happy with Vance Joseph, but I liked Tubes, the Kansas City special teams coordinator as well. He's been a great one for a long time. And, they brought him in and they were pretty impressed with him. So I'm excited about the special teams, and I'm excited about what McKenzie might bring to the table for the special teams. He's not a very big guy. He's 5'7", 173 pounds with, very short arms, 28 and 7/8 arm length, and 8 and 7/8 hands. So hands aren't too small, but those arms are pretty short.
I worry about hands than I do arm length for wide receivers. Bigger hands usually equal better ability to catch the football. And but I don't know. Isaiah McKenzie, he's a decent receiver. Just watching him, but he's more of that special teams guy. That's what we're bringing him in for day one. That's what I agree. He had five punt return touchdowns and then a kickoff return touchdown while in college, and just was dynamic. I watched his highlight video here today, and it was about 5 minutes just straight of special teams plays. He did a lot more than just those 6 touchdowns, and he got a lot of big time returns. So. I think day one, he brings something to this team.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you see him on tape and he is dynamic. We've been avoiding the J word, but he's going to bring some juice to special teams. And you saw it in his drills. I mean, he ran a 4.42 40. He had a 36-inch vertical, 123 broad jump, a 6.64 3-cone, and a 4.15 20-yard shuttle. So he's agile and he's fast. I'm just mostly worried about his size. He's very small. Not many guys that small make it as wide receivers. I mean, maybe, Tavon Austin, how great he was taken pretty high, but how great is he? Some of that's probably on Jeff Fisher in the offense that's in Los Angeles now. Yeah. But worst case scenario, he's going to be a solid special teams player for us. And I could not believe the hype that Todd McShay, Mel Kiper, and ESPN were putting on this kid. I mean, they were all just totally about this kid.
They loved our draft. It's funny. NFL.com really didn't like the Broncos draft a whole lot. ESPN loved it. Garrett Bowles' pick was the one that they kind of hated. Between Mel Kiper and McShay, they thought that was a little high because they just weren't very high on the offensive line prospects, which most people weren't. But Todd McShay, this is what he had to say. He said that he could be one of the biggest steals of day 3. He said, get him in space. He's as dangerous as any returner in this draft. I think he's one of the top 3 or 4 return specialists, undersized slot receivers coming out of this draft. He could be a steal for a team on day 3. And Mel Kiper, I couldn't believe what he said about this kid because, this is I don't know. I feel like he lost it at this moment. But he said that his comparison for McKenzie is Antonio Brown when he came out of college, where he was viewed as that undersized special teams guy with some ability as a receiver. Comparing a 5th round pick guy that's pretty undersized, didn't put up a whole lot of receiving numbers in college, to the number 1 wide receiver in football. Well, arguably. Okay, I should say arguably. Julio Jones might have a little something to say about that. But Antonio Brown, top 3 guy. So, I mean, that's high praise for this kid. And, like I said, he has ability when he gets in the open field just to make people miss. A great stat, probably one of my favorite stats for him, is that this past season, every 7th time he touched the ball, this is special teams, receiving, running, he scored a touchdown. That's pretty impressive.
That is very impressive. And his stats back that up. He wasn't a high volume producer, but when he touched the ball, he made things happen. He had, this past year as a junior, he had 44 receptions for 633 yards, 14.4 yards per attempt, and 7 touchdowns. And he also rushed the ball for 134 yards for 7.1 yards per carry and 2 rushing touchdowns. As a punt returner, he had 692 yards for 11.7 yards and 5 punt return touchdowns. Always been a great special teams contributor. And, the SEC, these teams are deep. So he's not just doing this against, some poor, horrible competition or, no offense, Pac-12 fans, but not as deep defensive rosters compared to the SEC.
Yeah.
He made it happen. So he's dynamic for sure. Touching back again, I'm gonna harp on this, but that size, I do worry a little bit about his ability to take big hits, whether that be injury related or ball security related. Kind of like Trenton Holiday again, deja vu there. But if he's smart as if he is smart about protecting himself when he's running, and doesn't set himself up for too many big hits and protects the ball, we could see the field flipped 30 more times this year than we did last year.
Yeah, it's amazing how much our special teams is probably going to be night and day this year compared to last year. It just wasn't a focus last year. They kind of put the ball into the hands of a couple guys that really hadn't really shown much of anything, and they didn't show anything last year. And so this year, adding all this dynamic juice, I'm going to say it just this one time for the podcast, juice. This kid brings it. I mean, he's got some of the best acceleration. There's a couple times I watched him where he had about 3 guys coming out of him, and they just took terrible angles. It didn't look like they were going to. And then all of a sudden, this guy just hit the accelerator. 2 steps, he's already at full speed, and he's already by these guys. And that's what he brings to the table. So he can make a big play real quick, go from 0 to 60 in just a couple steps. And I'm excited to see what it brings. We had day 1 of OTAs yesterday, and somebody said that it looked like McKenzie was in the lead after day 1, which is kind of crazy to say. It's just day 1. But he looked the most comfortable of receiving punts and just, looking like he had the best ball security of any of the guys. But that is a concern. Like you said, not only because of his size, but he showed it while he was at Georgia. He didn't have a whole lot of touches. Remember that. This is not a high volume guy. And yet he had 3 fumbles as a freshman, 5 as a sophomore, and 4 as a junior. So he showed a little bit of improvement from, his sophomore to junior year. He had more touches and less fumbles, but that's still pretty bad for the number of touches that he had. So that worries me. And then you add in, if he's such a small guy, you hope that they have great route running ability to use that to their advantage. And he's not a great route runner. He is very sloppy. He's a body catcher, which again, being smaller, you need to be able to use your hands, to increase your catch radius. And he doesn't have that. He likes to catch it up against his body and then go try to make a play. And so I think he's a little bit limited early on. I think he is mostly just a special teams guy where you maybe throw in 2 to 3 plays a game, just trying to get him involved in the offense. Swing pass, quick end around, jet sweep, whatever you want to call it. Those kind of plays that he did there at Georgia. But I think teams, they're in the SEC, they picked up. This is all that this guy does. A lot of the screen passes, the jet sweeps, or run deep. And once they kind of figured that out, his numbers dropped off dramatically. Like you look at his first 3 games, he had almost, I think, like 300 yards receiving in the first 3 games. And then, if you look at his final totals for the year, 692 yards. So he had 400 yards the rest of the season. So he's got some great things and he's got some terrible things to his game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, again, with that size and just overall how he was used, he's probably not going to be challenging for a big wide receiver role year one, probably not even year two. He's going to have to contribute on special teams as a returner. And as we saw with Norwood, or I guess we didn't see with Norwood last year, that's valuable, and we need that, especially with a very good defense. But we need to be able to have a guy that can flip the field. You know, we didn't have that so much last year. We didn't really have that 2 years ago either. And adding that can just add points and can totally change the momentum of the game. For better or for worse, I guess, with him if he's going to fumble it. Again, Trendon Holiday, I keep seeing flashbacks.
He's got better hands than Trendon. I mean, there was a reason the Broncos never used Trendon on offense. He had some of the worst hands, from what I've been told, of any wide receiver they've seen come through Denver. So McKenzie's not quite to that level. He's not great, but he's not to that level.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I am. I'm saying there's a chance with this kid. You know, I'm with Mel Kiper here. This kid's going to be something. No,
I would have guessed Henderson. Yeah, I would have guessed Carlos would have been the Antonio Brown comparison for me when I watch him. But, you know, that's just me. I got a big crush on him.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's got much better hands. He's got that speed. He's got the special teams ability. Yeah, that's probably a better comparison if you're looking at our two wide receivers that we took. But, yeah, I like this kid, McKenzie. I think it was a little bit questionable, I guess, on the pick, just in my opinion, just because it seems like it's tripled down on special teams. But we have heard that the Broncos really don't want to use Carlos Henderson on special teams unless they have to, you know, unless nobody else emerges. So it makes sense, I guess, if you view it in that light. But Langley was a punt returner. McKenzie's a punt returner. So are you saying that one of them is going to have pretty much no role this year?
If I had to guess, you know, our coming up episodes, we're going to break down the roster a little bit and talk about who we think are going to get the starting roles and grade the positional groups. But if I had to guess, I would say Langley probably more likely to be kickoffs and used as a gunner, and that McKenzie would be used as a punt returner. Just a little bit different skill set in those guys.
Yeah.
A little less long speed.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Definitely makes a lot of sense. But moving right along.
We do want to
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. We do want to touch on a little bit of the good that he has, you know, and some of the notes that we have here. One of the things that I like most about him that you touched on here is that he has very good vision. You know, he does a good job setting guys up farther down the field, and he can make people miss. You know, he doesn't have the incredibly high rate of numbers that Carlos Henderson had in making people miss. But I would guess that per touch, I mean, it's probably not that far off because, I mean, he is, I mean, his nickname is the human joystick, and you see that on tape. So he's got very good vision, and he can really set guys up. And probably, like we talked about, you know, year one return game, if we can use that and get him on there in that regard, that's going to be valuable for us, especially for a later-ish day 3 pick.
Yeah, and something to add to that of just making people miss, something that is very rare for a guy like him is he is very good about getting north and south. A lot of these guys, they'll kind of want to dance around, and you'll see those plays where they lose like 20 yards because they decide to run backwards. Oh my goodness, nothing irritates me more than a guy thinking that he should run backwards and that's going to be okay. But he does a great job as he makes a guy miss and he goes, you know what, I'm getting north and south. Let's go. And that's why, like I said, he had a lot of returns that didn't quite go for touchdowns, but they went for huge yards and, you know, really flipped the field for a team. And a big part of that is because, yeah, he makes sure that he at least gets some kind of yardage. And I love that about him. And I'm excited to see him. I agree with you. I think he is going to be our punt returner day one. And that's a good thing for the Broncos, as long as he can hold on to the ball. And, yeah, I'm just excited to see what he brings.
I know I'm going to throw my TV through, or throw the TV. Wow. Throw the remote through the TV when he fumbles it, though. Gosh, nothing irritates me more than seeing a defense force an opponent to go 3 and out, and then the punt returner fumbles it.
Yeah.
I might throw the TV. Take that back. I'm going to throw the TV through the window. That's probably.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. That was, I think everybody really related with Aqib Talib when he yelled at Norwood last year. After he fumbled, I think it was against, was it the Patriots? The very first drive, we caused them to go 3 and out, and we have great field position, and Norwood fumbles it. And I think they go right down the field and score a touchdown. They might only get a field goal, but still, just like, yeah,
Jesus, come on.
Yeah, that is, I'm sure every Bronco fan was kind of like with Talib going, are you kidding me? Because I think right before that he had been benched for like 2 games because of fumbling on punt returns. And then his first time back, what does he do? He fumbles. So, yes, McKenzie, if you can learn anything, please learn to hold on to the ball, like above everything else. I don't care if you fair catch it, 70% of the time. There's nothing worse. And like I said, with our defense, when they make a big play like that to all of a sudden then have the field flipped on them, no bigger switch in momentum. Oh, my goodness, than seeing some of that happen.
Our last 2 losses to the Patriots were because of muffed punts, weren't they?
Yeah, that's true. I guess you had Wes Welker in overtime where he got really stupid and forgot to wave the guys off or something like that. And devastating. Those were pretty bad losses. That first one especially because we had, 24-0 lead at halftime or something like that?
Let's moving on.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Yes, sorry, Bronco fans. Yes. All right. D'Angelo Henderson. Yes. I know. We sometimes bring up bad memories here. I'm sorry, guys.
Glutton for punishment.
I know. The human brain, it remembers the bad more than the good. And so fortunately, we remember a lot of those kind of plays. But anyway, moving on to another guy that a lot of guys here at Mile High Huddle are very high on, D'Angelo Henderson, running back of Coastal Carolina. What can you tell me about this kid?
Well, we got another 5'7" guy, played mostly around 200, 210 pounds, but carries the weight pretty well. He's not going to mistake anybody for Maurice Jones-Drew with a super crazy trunk, but he carries the weight pretty well, and he plays pretty solid as well. He's not afraid of contact. He ran solid at the combine. He had a 4.48, so he's got some wheels on him with a 34-inch vertical and 120-inch broad jump, so he's got some lower body explosiveness. And he's been pretty effective during his career at Coastal Carolina, specifically his sophomore and junior years. He had over 1,500 yards his sophomore year, over 1,300 yards his junior year, and over 1,000 yards his senior year. He did have an injury, but all those years he had over 6 yards a carry as just a producer as well. He had 20 touchdowns as a sophomore, 16 as a junior, and 16 this year, which he missed 3 games. So that's a pretty good rate of touchdowns. He hasn't been used too much as a receiver. 30 receptions, 40 and 20, so a decent amount, but not a primary target. But he has been effective there, and just overall been very productive during his time at Coastal Carolina. His 2 of the guys that he compared to most on his mock draftable spider graph were Devontae Freeman of the Atlanta Falcons and Duke Johnson of the Cleveland Browns, who, he was a pretty high, I think he was a 2nd or 3rd round pick, and they thought they were going to get a little bit more out of him than they've had. He hasn't been able to stay healthy, but a very productive player at Miami when he was there. And if we can get that out of the 6th round pick, that's going to be huge for us. Yeah, I like those comparisons. That'd be great. Especially Freeman. Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness, that'd be huge. So yeah, he's been very productive at Coastal Carolina. Not a big school, not the best competition, but he's been a man amongst boys, and on the tape you can see that. He set a Division I football record for scoring in 35 straight games, which is pretty incredible, and fell just short of Danny Woodhead's all-time record. So there's a name for you, and if we can get a little bit of production from him like McCoy got it at Danny Woodhead this year, that would be absolutely huge. Yeah, that's the names that keep coming up are a lot of old San Diego, now LA Chargers names, Danny Woodhead, trying to think of a couple of the other guys that they had there, kind of Brandon those Oliver. Smaller. Yeah, Brandon Oliver. That's the one I was thinking. And I really loved Brandon Oliver's game before he blew out his Achilles and just this kind of struggled with some injuries. But man, I loved actually watching that kid run. He was just so smooth. And I think you see some of that here with D'Angelo Henderson too. And probably a big reason the Broncos really liked him is his versatility, his ability to run inside, run outside, catch the football, do a little bit of everything. And, just kind of be that, all around back that you can stick on the field, especially on 3rd down, and just see what he does. And I know Eric Trickle loved this kid. Do you remember when we did our roundtable for the draft? And Eric's going, if you guys don't take this kid, I'm going to be so angry. And then we voted against him.
And that was I felt bad for that, but he's been pounding the table. He's been talking to his sources, almost trying to like pound the table, saying, "Hey, get this guy's name in there for the Broncos." And so it's been kind of fun, and I'm excited for him to get his guy. Last year we had our good friend Scott, who had been pounding the table for Devontae Booker, and I don't think he stopped smiling for like 2 months after we drafted that kid.
Not until he saw the field and fumbled it.
Well, yeah. Oh, jeez. Oh, please don't be that. Oh, don't do that, D'Angelo Henderson. But
Speaking of fumbles, D'Angelo Henderson. That is, again, the last two picks. You got those smaller 5'7" guys, and he has fumbled at a decent rate in college. He's the max ideal size for an NFL bell cow, and because of that, ball security is an issue, and he's going to need to fix that if he's going to be successful in the NFL.
Yeah. The last 3 years, he had 6 fumbles as a sophomore, 4 fumbles as a junior, and 5 fumbles this past year. And, you look at, he was a high volume guy. So, yes, there's going to be probably a couple fumbles along the way. But the fact that he didn't really get much better, that's always kind of something that you look for is, if they have one bad year, I go, okay, what did they do the next year to correct that? That's why I wasn't very high on Deshaun Watson as a quarterback. Because I look at his interceptions and I say he didn't improve. He ran a very quarterback-friendly system and he threw a lot of interceptions. So D'Angelo Henderson, this is something that it's going to be a major issue possibly early on for him to hold on to the ball and make sure that he doesn't cost the team. Turnovers, name of the game, the Chiefs especially, they've made a career out of that. Andy Reid has always been a big pusher for turnovers. And when they get lots of turnovers, they win lots of games. So I'd hate to see the reverse of, when we had Jamal Charles fumble a game to us. I'd hate to see D'Angelo Henderson fumble a game to them. Chiefs fans wouldn't shut up for days.
Ironic. The more ironic would be if Jamal Charles fumbled a game.
I didn't want to say it because I don't want to even put it out there in the universe that this could ever happen.
That bad juju.
Yeah, I don't want that. But no, I do. I think D'Angelo Henderson, he's a good fit. I don't know how much he's going to help year one. It all kind of depends on the health of all of our other 3 guys. All 3 have shown that they haven't been able to stay healthy in their NFL careers. And so it wouldn't surprise me if D'Angelo Henderson got a few more carries than people even think he might.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised about that either, and I'm looking forward to seeing him on tape in the NFL. One thing that I noticed when watching him was that it's hard to tell if it's because of the level of competition around him or the players around him, his own teammates, but he just moves so much faster than those guys. So I'm really curious to see how he moves, just the processing speed and the spatial awareness that he has when he's going up against NFL caliber athletes.
No, I agree. And I do. I like his speed too, his quickness, I guess I should say. That's probably a better word for what he does. He honestly, if I'm building a running back, I like the shorter guys. I like the guys that can hide behind the line of, behind the offensive line. You get those big uglies in front of him, and he just kind of blends into the back, and then a hole opens up and just explodes through it. And you saw him do that a lot at Coastal Carolina. He actually showed some pretty good patience to wait for a hole to open up and then use his speed to really break through there for a big run, and then having a little bit of power, pick up those extra few yards. And I really love his running style. I think he'll be a great fit on this power blocking scheme. And for a 6th-round running back, I think he could turn into something. Bronco fans, I think we've had a little bit of luck with 6th-round running backs before and seeing them become something good. So, yeah. Somebody that might be getting inducted into the Hall of Fame this year. So, if he can, that's pretty high expectations to expect him to follow in those footsteps. But no, I think he could turn into a possibly 3-down running back in the future.
I could see that too. He's got great field vision. He's surprisingly powerful for a smaller back. That's one thing I love about watching him is he's not afraid to lower that shoulder, and he brings some decent power behind him too. He's very agile, and he has the speed to kick it outside if he needs to. And he's also comfortable running between the tackles. I mean, he's got decent vision, and his his lateral quickness and his ability to hop is pretty awesome. I mean, that's his nickname. We talked about the human joystick. D'Angelo Henderson's nickname is Hop. So pretty fun. That's also because he hurt his leg and he was damned. Like, I'm getting out there, and he was like hopping around on one leg. And coach is like, okay, I see you out there. Like, that's fine. If you're still doing it, but you're kind of looking funky. So he had that nickname Hop, and it stuck.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I guess I've never heard that one, so that's kind of neat. I was going to ask you, do you worry at all when running backs take a lot of abuse in college?
I do if I'm using a premium selection on them. But 6th round here, at this point, it's just taking a flyer. They're lottery tickets this late. Yeah.
Okay. Because, he did miss 3 games, like you said earlier, that he did have a shoulder injury. And so, and that's against lower competition. In the NFL, he's going to be taking some bigger hits. So I do worry a little bit about just the workload he's already had. But at the same time, year 1, I don't think he's going to be getting a ton of touches unless guys get injured. Which is very possible at the running back position. You need depth. I'm glad that we finally have a little bit of depth at the running back position, because last year, C.J. Anderson went down. Booker went down with an injury. He still played through it, but he was pretty hurt, and he was still recovering from his knee injury too. And we just had nothing. We really didn't. We just didn't have anything behind them to kind of, hold us up for the rest of the season. And this year, I actually feel like we have 4 guys that could be starters. Yeah. Not great starters, but starters.
If we can just mold Jamal Charles and CJ Anderson into, one super healthy back, then we're good to go. But until then, we're just going to have to play with the hot hand. And all the notes coming out of Denver say the same thing. One thing to note as well about Henderson is that he is an older prospect. He spent a year getting academically eligible, and he spent another year redshirted. So he's a little older than most guys, and add that to a high volume and some injuries in college. So I think his tape, when he flashes, on tape, that is higher than his draft spot. So if he wasn't older and he didn't have all those carries and some of the injuries and the fumbling issues, I think he would have gone higher. But his tape gets you excited. He's a guy who I think can be very dynamic, and I wouldn't be surprised if he developed into a pretty good pass catcher as well.
Agreed. Yeah. And he does well in space and making people miss. And that just seems to be a theme this year with all the picks the Broncos paid, guys that can make people miss. And, I know that was something Kubiak talked about a lot last year. He was kind of upset with the running backs. He's like, you guys got to make the first guy miss. The offensive line can only block so many people. There's going to be somebody that's going to come hit you. And it's your responsibility to make the first guy miss. And they didn't really do it last year, where this year I think we have some guys that could actually do that.
Yeah, and hopefully along with some better blocking, we can have just a better, more effective run game in general. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm excited about Henderson. I'm not sure that he will make the 53-man roster, just given the running backs that we have. But I heard that he had pretty good first days of OTAs, along with Bernard Pierce, who's kind of a forgotten man. And so I'm excited to watch the running back battle in training camp and just let the best guys go, because we need some talent there.
Definitely. All right, well, let's move on to Mr. Swag himself.
Swag. All right. And I just want to preface this rap that you guys are about to hear is actually Chad Kelly rapping about himself. So if that makes you love him more or hate him more, just accept it. There is a little bit of Manziel about him. There's like his game and who he is. There's a little bit of Manziel. We didn't use a first round pick on him. This is Mr. Irrelevant. So, you're not taking a huge risk, but I guess there's not much more I can say until you hear the rap. So enjoy.
Chad Kelly, number 12, swag, Under Armour, All-American, swag, Player of the Year, All-State, swag, doing it big, G5, let's get it, swag. Watch how I touch down, Chad Kelly, hit the field, it's going down, Chad Kelly, number 1 QB, Chad Kelly, the defense ain't seeing me, Chad Kelly, watch how I touch down, Chad Kelly, hit the field, it's going down, Chad Kelly, number 1 QB, Chad Kelly, the defense ain't seeing me, Chad Kelly, watch how I touch down, Chad Kelly, hit the field, it's going down, Chad Kelly, number 1 QB, Chad Kelly, the defense ain't seeing me, Chad Kelly.
Check Kelly on the field, yeah, you know it's swag. Touchdown every time that he throw a pass. He might just take off like he Michael Vick. Shake you for the touchdown, yeah, you know he's sick.
Wow, how do you like that? Isn't that so great, Carl? I've sent that to you, right?
Yes. I've listened to it more times than I want to admit on the show.
It's on my work playlist.
Is it okay?
No.
Oh goodness. Okay. I just picture you blaring it through your house and your girlfriend like being like, "Oh my gosh, turn this crap off."
Actually, sidebar, because this is hilarious. We were dating before this, but when I first started getting her to be a Bronco fan was during that miraculous Tebow year. Because I mean, how could you not be a fan during that year?
Right.
And we were obsessed with the. He's a gamer. He's a baller. He's a playmaker and a shot caller. You know that Skip Bayless like rap that they had. Like we would play that.
Yep.
Just like almost just to tease our friends. We'd play that like it was on my phone. Yeah, she's literally she's back here singing the words.
Yeah, I told you I actually have talked to the guy that wrote that, who actually produced it and everything on another Bronco message board. If you guys didn't know, Nick and I met on a Bronco message board and kind of got our conversation started through our mutual friend Scott. I think we've talked about this before, but anyway, yes. So I met that guy that wrote that and produced it and everything. That got it on the show, and he's actually a pretty cool guy. But yes, so Bronco fans, you guys have been very fortunate. You guys have gotten some of the best raps or whatever you want to call it, some of the best musical talent about our players.
Yeah, we need some more. We need some. Who'd be a good one? We need like a monster mash with like Von. I guess Where's Gone. I liked it when we were Von Werewolf.
Yeah. Wolf would be a good one to rap about. Manuel Sanders.
Yeah.
Side note, did you see that he had a baby deer following him everywhere?
What? No.
Yeah, he found a baby deer and they brought it into his house for a few days and had to follow him around, and he took it to the basketball courts with him and everything.
That's how you get Lyme's disease. What are you doing?
Yeah, let's not do that. Anyway, so Chad Kelly, here's who we're talking about, Mr. Irrelevant or Mr. Swag himself. I mean, he's got a lot of nicknames going both ways. This is maybe one of the most talked about 7th round picks in NFL history. This kid is about as polarizing as it comes. He's, like you said, Johnny Manziel. He has things that just make you go, wow, and things that make you shake your head going, oh, my goodness, how could somebody be so stupid? He is the nephew of Hall of Famer Jim Kelly. In fact, it was announced that Elway actually called Jim Kelly before he made the pick to make sure that Jim approved of the pick and said, is this kid going to be all right? Is this kid going to be on his best behavior? And Jim gave his thumbs up approval. And so, yeah, that's how we ended up with Chad Kelly himself. And okay, let's just dive into it. Let's get into some of his background here, both the good and the bad. When you look at this kid, I think you and I both can agree he is a top 2 round talent of this past draft.
Yeah, absolutely. He's obviously has some deficiencies we'll get into, but if he didn't have the injuries and he had not the off-field issues as well, I wouldn't be surprised if he was, taken in the top 40, top 60.
Yep, exactly. NFL evaluator was asked about him. He said, no doubt, has an NFL arm, and some of his habits that are bad can be fixed. So this kid, somebody would have fell in love with this kid if he didn't have all the off the field issues and everything else going on, injuries. In fact, we've heard that Elway got quite a few calls because teams were upset that he took him with the Mr. Irrelevant pick because they were already lining up their pitch to try to get this kid to come in as an undrafted free agent. So, there's actually quite a few teams that like what they see on film from this kid. But off the field, here's where we get into things. This past October, it was bye week for them. They're in college for Ole Miss, and he decided to attend his little brother's football game. And his little brother got taken down out of bounds. Jim Kelly, I guess, kind of talked about this a little bit. He said that while Chad Kelly's brother was on the ground, players were kicking him, ripping off his helmet, punching him, all these kind of things. Chad Kelly came out of the stands and got right in the middle of the brawl. Not exactly what you want to see from your face of your franchise.
Not at all. Unless they have flag.
Yeah. Other things that happened, he ended up getting kicked off of the Clemson team in 2014 for conduct detrimental to the team. I've read up a little bit more on this. He was having a lot of fights with coaches. At one point, he went up to him because he used to play lacrosse as well. And he wasn't happy about his playing time, so he went up to the coaches and said, well, if you guys aren't going to play me, I'm just going to go play lacrosse. And coaches didn't really like that. They don't like having kind of those ultimatums put on them. And he kind of admits now, he said, I didn't exactly handle that situation very well. You also have, even before that, though, he was arrested for punching a bouncer at a bar. And then he threatened at one point to open fire on the bar with an AK-47. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, just a threat. So, I mean, he's not actually shooting. But
Right. But he just, the fact that you say something like that, it's, oh, my goodness.
I wonder if he actually remembers doing it. I bet he was sloshed out of his mind. But now I'm not making kid. I don't want to make excuses for the kids. It's kind of the affluenza effect, because Jim Kelly's, hard worker, good guy in all accounts. Then you got Chad Kelly, who's just been an issue everywhere he's gone. Well, besides Ole Miss, I guess he wasn't. Well, besides, he's had issues at Ole Miss too. So I don't know. Yeah, he's got some growing up to do.
Because didn't he get arrested at Ole Miss too? Not too long ago.
Well, he had the issue with this after he hurt his ACL, where he went on the field and joined a brawl at his brother's high school game.
Right.
You got to not do that.
Yeah. So there's just lots of off the field things that just make you very much question who this kid is. And, when is the next big blow up? Is he going to be Ben Roethlisberger early on in his career where he goes and does really stupid things? I don't know. Yeah, that's hard to tell. You never know when a kid's finally going to figure it out, when they hit that rock bottom. Maybe him sitting there watching the draft and seeing his name not called for 3 straight days until the final pick. Maybe that is an eye opener for him, that he's not as swag as he thought. People don't think as highly of him as he thought. And, but like I said, there is a lot of good to like in this kid. He's very much a hard worker. His coaches there at Ole Miss, they talked about how after the Sugar Bowl, his junior season, when they returned to campus, where did they find Chad Kelly? Watching film already on his 2016 opponents. They talked about when he first came there to Ole Miss, there's 2 quarterbacks that had been there for 2 years already. They knew the entire playbook, knew all the players, knew everything. And they didn't think Chad Kelly would be able to get up to speed as quickly as he did. And next thing they knew, he's pulling, their top 2 receivers, Treadwell and Stringfellow. Is that right? I think those were the 2 top wide receivers. Stringfellow. There we go. Pulled them both aside and said, hey, I need your guys' help. Worked extra time with them, worked on the playbook. And by that fall, obviously he won the starting job. So, he brings a lot. He has that confidence that you love in a quarterback. There's just something about that. When you can look at your quarterback and he has that swag, I'm terrible at saying it. I should never try to say that kind of word. But anyway, he just has that confidence that when you look at him, like, this guy's going to go make a play for you. So everybody else wants to up their game as well. And he showed that. He made some very nice plays. He had some very nice comebacks during his time in college. He showed up big in some of the biggest games. I remember I had some guy try to tell me why Deshaun Watson is this great quarterback, and it's all because he did well against Alabama. And he made the comment, he said, no quarterback has been able to do that over the last 2 years against Alabama. And, I did a little bit of digging, and I said, there is another quarterback, Mr. Chad Kelly, who did just as well against that Alabama defense. He lit them up. And so, if you want to make that argument for Deshaun Watson being great, you got to make that same argument for Chad Kelly. He has some innate ability just to make plays when you absolutely need one.
Yeah, agreed. And he's got a lot of tools to work with. I mean, he is, as we heard about the rap in his rap song, he compares himself to Michael Vick with a cannon arm. So he's not as athletic as Michael Vick, but if you are not containing him and you are playing man coverage and he gets outside the pocket, he can take it 40 yards, 50 yards. I mean, he is a very good athlete, and in space and going downfield, he can scoot. I really enjoy his pocket maneuverability. It sometimes can be a blessing and a curse. He can be a little bit too aggressive, and he can run himself into some poor situations, lose more yards than he should. Some Tony Romo backfield magician stuff where I don't even know how he sees the guy coming behind him, and he'll just duck, swing out, get out into the side of the field, the kind of Russell Wilson style, and then reset. One thing I absolutely love about him, dude, when he gets out of the pocket, he resets and then puts his eyes downfield to see if anything is broken down. He's not just looking to tuck and run. He's looking to get outside and then for a big chunk play. And he does that pretty regularly on tape.
He does. And he does it well. He hit 66.7% of his passes when throwing on the run. So he actually had better accuracy on the run than he did sitting in the pocket. That's pretty awesome. I mean, he had pretty decent accuracy from the pocket too. I'm not trying to say anything against that, but this guy, when you get him out in space, he's a threat with his legs, threat with his arm, and can make the big play. He's got a strong enough arm for the NFL. He's got a quick release. That's always fun to see.
More than strong enough.
Yeah.
By the way, he's got a really good arm. He might actually have the strongest arm on the team.
I wouldn't go that far, but you know how much I believe in Lynch's arm. So that's we'll see. But he'll get his opportunity to show who has the stronger arm for sure. But and he has no fear. He will fit a throw into a tight window, which can be good and bad. That I had to put that in both categories because there are some interceptions that leave you shaking your head. He has some Jay Cutler to his game where he just believes in his arm way too much and will throw in triple coverage. So you gotta be willing to take the good with the bad with this guy because he definitely takes a lot of chances. It's kind of interesting. I think the Broncos have two quarterbacks that are highly accurate, very much protect the football in Trevor Siemian, and then our undrafted free agent Kyle Sloter. Get into him a little bit more, Northern Colorado, and then you got two gunslingers. So it's just kind of like they decided to go with a mix and see who emerges. So that's not bad. I think that's good for both sides. I think it makes Siemian have to work to push the football down the field when he sees Paxton Lynch throwing it like he does. But it also makes Paxton Lynch have to try to make better decisions because he's got to realize, he throws 3 or 4 interceptions at practice. He's not getting the job. Yeah,
absolutely. And I'm excited about Chad Kelly's play, but to be fair, he's got some issues. Sometimes, like you said, he can trust his arm too much. One thing I noted when watching him play is that he has a lot of balls that are batted at the line of scrimmage. And he is 6'2", so he's not super tall for a quarterback, but he kind of dips his arm a little bit. So he needs to work on not overstriding with that front foot, and so he can throw off a higher platform and then just bring that ball a little bit more over top. That way he can negate some of those batted balls. Against Alabama specifically, I think the first half I saw 3 or 4 balls batted at the line of scrimmage. So something that he's going to have to work on. Otherwise, he's going to have a decent amount of incompletions and potentially some tip ball interceptions. And also, obviously, the off-field issues. But he's had injury issues. He's had his ACL torn twice, I believe. He's had his MCL torn as well. And he had his wrist injured at his pro day. And I think he had a thumb injury as well. He's had a fair amount of injuries. And with his smaller body, I mean, he's not super small. He's like 6'2", 225. So he's not too small. But he's not, Tim Tebow. He's not a tank. So, and he's already had a fair amount of injuries. So that's something to note. And one of the reasons that he was available at Mr. Relevant is these injuries. So,
yeah, agreed. Because there's a chance he might actually be put on IR this year. Give him his redshirt year to get healthy, learn the playbook, and then next year have him really join the quarterback competition.
And stay out of trouble.
Yeah, and stay out of trouble. He's got to prove that too. I know the Broncos pretty much gave him a one-strike rule. You mess up once, you're done. You're out of here. We're not putting up with this stuff. And so he's going to have to grow up quick and make better decisions. I did hear him kind of try to justify all of his mistakes. It was kind of an interesting twist on things. I don't know if you've heard this, but he said, if you look at all my issues off the field, every time it was me trying to help somebody. Somebody else was in trouble and I tried to step in. And he said, I didn't make the best decisions once I stepped in, but that's, I had another person's interest at heart.
Yeah. And you still got to make better decisions, but hearing from his teammates at Ole Miss, Evan Ingram, Tunsil, and some of the other wide receivers, they absolutely love the kid. They say, willing to go to battle with him, and he's a great leader in the locker room and on the field, and they want to fight with him. So he has an uphill battle being that Mr. Relevant and coming off the injuries and already having two young quarterbacks that are battling for a position. But I wouldn't be shocked if 2018 we might have another quarterback battle, and this guy could win it. He has the talent. He's got a lot of issues with some of his accuracy, sometimes his ball placement, sideline throws. Sometimes he drops in on a bucket. They're just not consistent enough. But, he has the talent, and I think he's getting that 7th-round pick, even if he's just a backup quarterback, that is super valuable.
Agreed. Look at, and I know this guy was a lot higher pick than what Chad Kelly was, but for the Patriots, look what they were getting offered for Jimmy Garoppolo this year. There was talk that they were maybe getting offered 2 first-round picks just because he had some potential as a first-round pick or as a franchise quarterback. And so if he shows well in preseason, Broncos could be getting a lot of calls and turn that Mr. Irrelevant pick into maybe 2nd, first-round pick, depending how well he shows.
We can dream.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah,
he's got
a long ways. But I love – this is what I love. Elway realizes how important the quarterback position is, and he has spent some draft capital, first round, now 2 7th-round picks. He's thrown a lot at this position and seeing if one of these guys can develop. See if one of these guys can become that long-term solution. Instead of having to bring in free agents or, whatever you want to add to the team. I love Peyton Manning, obviously, but he was just a short-term fix for the team. And so hopefully, yeah, if it's Chad Kelly, great. Paxton Lynch, great. Trevor Siemian, great. Even our undrafted guy, Kyle Sloter, great. Whoever it is, as long as we have a great quarterback, good things happen.
Yep, agreed. And he's also got something that I don't think we've said enough already, swag. So we'll have to play out the rap again. I might just toss that in at the end just because it's too great. But we should move along here. Got a little bit of time left, and we got to hit on some of these undrafted free agents. I'm just going to list some of these ones, and give me any ones that stick out to you. There's some that stick out to me as well. So we got Eric Ostell from Charleston Southern, and I believe he's going to be playing center. Josh Banderas from Nebraska. Boo, Nebraska. No, I'm just kidding. Dante
He is
Barnett.
one that sticks out, but go ahead.
Yeah. He sticks out when Iowa was beating his ass. No. Dante Barnett, safety, Kansas State. Jamal Carter, safety, Miami. Ken Eknem,
yeah.
Defensive end, Virginia Tech, one that Eric Trickle likes a lot. Jarrell Garcia Williams, Hawaii, linebacker. Deion Hollins, linebacker, UCLA. Cameron Hunt, offensive tackle, Oregon. Tyreek Jarrett, nose tackle, Pittsburgh. Anthony Nash, wide receiver, Duke. Marcus Rios, cornerback, UCLA. Kyle Sloter, quarterback, Northern Colorado. Sharik Soto, defensive line, Pittsburgh. Orion Stewart, defensive back, Baylor. And DeMonte Thomas, safety, Michigan. So out of all these guys, there's a few here that stick out to me, and the Broncos have a pretty high history of having undrafted free agents make the team and contribute. We got Chris Harris, obviously, is the golden example. C.J. Anderson, among others that are on the team. Shaq Barrett. So Denver's done a pretty good job with those undrafted free agents and having them find niches and roles on the team. So do any of these guys stick out to you? You think will make the roster this year and potentially have an impact going forward?
Well, one name sticks out, there's more than one name, but Josh Banderas, linebacker for Nebraska, like I said earlier, he does intrigue me. Nebraska has been known to do pretty well with some linebackers. As Zaire Anderson, I know you're very high on him, possibly even starting this year, and over Todd Davis. And this kid, he was kind of the guy that was in charge on the field. He was calling the plays for the Huskers, so he has great intelligence, has great instincts, decent athletic ability, good size for the position. And I don't know. I think he's a guy that could stick around. I think he could find a niche early on as a special teams guy, and maybe really fight for a roster spot on the 53. and just see what he can develop into. So I like him. Jamal Carter is the guy that got the highest signing bonus, I think like $20,000. He is that safety from Miami. 6'1", 218 pounds. He is a height, weight, speed athlete. Not really much of an NFL player, I would say, yet, or a football player. Really needs some time to work on his instincts and just kind of understand the game a lot better. He was a top safety coming out of high school, and he was right there in Miami, so he picked Miami to go to college. And he just never really made the field until this past year. And he had 85 tackles, 3 pass breakups. But, like I said, if he develops, if he spends a lot of time working with all of the guys that we have that can really help in that secondary, he could maybe become something. I don't know. At least year one, he could be a special teams guy. He, has that gunner ability to be a huge playmaker on special teams for us. So those are 2 names that really stick out to me. Any of them for you?
Kyle Sloter obviously is one. There's a running joke on one of the Broncos sites that, there's the Sloter fans, and they've been quoting the, I don't know if you ever watch Arrested Development, but when it's, there are literally dozens of us. Dozens! And he looks in the sky like with a corn dog. That's the Sloter Nation.
Oh, stop booing. There's nothing wrong with it. There are dozens of us. Dozens!
So he's somebody I haven't watched too much yet, but, given that Chad Kelly's not going to be playing and probably not playing preseason games, and, you don't want Lynch or Simeon, playing game 4. Sloter's somebody who's going to be playing some of those later reps, and I'm excited to see if he brings anything, because he's another quarterback to analyze. Yeah. And another one, just based on, I watched some of his tape and I wasn't super impressed, other than he has a big body and sometimes can anchor or get some push on some double teams, but not very often. And that's Tyreek Jarrett. He is 6'2", 330 pounds, but he had pretty horrible pro day numbers in terms of his athleticism. But again, he's like 330 pounds. So that's not unexpected. And given that right now our listed nose tackles are just the Pecco cousins, I wouldn't be surprised if Jarrett, if he, even has just a marginal preseason, if he makes the roster.
Yeah, I could see that. Just a quick kind of interesting note on Kyle Sloter. I met the parents of his top wide receiver this past year.
Oh.
Yeah, they got snowed in here on that big apocalypse snowstorm that I had. And they were staying here at the church. And so I was talking with them, and my dad had mentioned that I do a podcast. And they said, "Oh, really? Are you going to talk about anybody?" And I said, "Well, I think Kyle Sloter might be a guy that we're going to talk about for undrafted guys." And they go, "Oh, our son was his top wide receiver." And so, yeah, got to hear a little bit about him. They said they really like the kid. So, yeah, I don't know how much, stock you want to put into that or anything like that. But just kind of an interesting side note of just connections that you can make out of weird situations. I don't know. It's a decent undrafted free agent class. Nobody that really big time blows me away or anything like that, but there's a reason that they're undrafted. There's a couple guys I was kind of hoping the Broncos would go after, but they didn't. And that's okay. Like I said, they've always had a little bit of luck finding some guys. Offensive line-wise, maybe Eric Estelle, if Paradis isn't quite ready, is another guy that could make a little bit of noise. Cameron Hunt could fight for that backup offensive tackle spot, that right tackle spot out of Oregon. He got what was called the Pancake Award for college. I think he had the most pancakes of any offensive tackle in football.
Wow.
Yeah. I was just reading up a little bit on him on something with that. And so he's got a very aggressive attitude, fits very well with the type of offensive lineman we're looking for. And a guy I probably need to do a little bit more looking into. But, yeah, maybe he could really make a name for himself early on. And just have to see what these guys become.
Well, that's awesome. I'm excited to watch these guys, and I would just love to be there at camp and at training and just watching these position battles happen, because that's the next step. And that's what we're going to be doing next on this podcast with Carl and I. We're going to be starting to break down the positional battles, starting to rank the depth chart, give them a grade, and potentially starting to look around the AFC West as well. And, just talking to the general Bronco news. Chad has been taking over mainly of the breaking stuff. If anything happens, first day of OTAs, he had the podcast that came out just a couple days ago where he had Will Keys on, and they talked about, first day of OTAs and quarterback battle and everything. But Carl and I are still going to be here, doing a little bit more of instead of the breaking news, more of the analysis stuff, the deep dives, breaking down the roster, because we are 1A and 1B of the Denver Bronco armchair GMs. So there's a lot of listeners out there probably that feel the same way. But, we're going to break it down. We're going to analyze it, and we're going to give you what we think and what we feel. Right or wrong, we'll hopefully right. But, we do an okay job with this, I think. We watch a fair amount of tape and nuts. Yeah. But if you're here listening with us, you're football nuts too. So love it and excited to continue this journey on. We'll probably be starting to – I can't help it. I'm going to be talking some 2018. We'll be doing that some. And if you guys have any 2018 draft questions or players you want me to look at, send them my way. I already have some Twitter followers that, I say, have you checked this guy out yet? Have you checked out this guy yet? And, you guys oftentimes, point me in the right direction. And I can tell you, like, this kid's got some talent. One of the listeners pointed out a 7th round pick by the Raiders this year, Andre Ware, I believe, the offensive tackle, Alabama State. And I would never heard of that kid. And I watched him like this kid's pretty athletic, obviously some technical issues, but nobody had really been talking about him. And then, a week later, there's a bunch of buzz about him and he kills it at his pro day and he ends up with 7th round draft picks. So, just toss those guys this way and I'll find film. There's a lot out there and I'll dig through YouTube forever if I have to. So looking forward to moving on and starting to get into training camp and all these OTAs. So it's going to be fun. All right, well, that will wrap up episode 16 of the Draft Focus Huddle Up podcast, and we won't be as draft focused until probably we get some college football going. So it's going to be a little bit, kind of breaks my heart. I'll throw in a little bit, but nothing too much. We have closed down the draft, and we're starting to look ahead to next season. Bronco fans, make sure to keep checking back in on Mile High Huddle for an update of OTAs and all their Bronco news. Carl has an article coming out, a film breakdown. It's a premium piece on DeMarcus Walker, comparing him to Tom Johnson some, the Vikings interior pass rusher, and had some film on him. So I'm looking forward to that piece, Carl. You can find Carl on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH and myself at Nick Kendell MHH, as well as find our Denver Bronco articles on Mile High Huddle, an affiliate of Scout.com and a member of the CBS Sports Digital Network. You can follow Huddle Up Podcast today by subscribing to us on iTunes and for Android users Stitcher, as well as Spreaker, CastBox, SoundCloud, and a variety of other mediums. You can also follow us on Twitter at Mile High Huddle and at HuddleUp_MHH. Again, please be sure to subscribe and rate us. We hope you enjoyed this swag edition of this podcast, and we will see you next week. Go Broncos, and here's a little bit more of Swag Kelly.
Chad Kelly, number 12, swag, Under Armour, All-American, swag, Player of the Year, All-State, swag, doing it big, G5, let's get it, swag.
Watch our touchdown, Chad Kelly, hit the field, it's going down, Chad Kelly, number 1 QB, Chad Kelly, the defense ain't seeing me, Chad Kelly, watch our touchdown, Chad Kelly, hit the field, it's going down, Chad Kelly, number 1 QB, Chad Kelly, the defense ain't seeing me, Chad Kelly, watch our touchdown, Chad Kelly, hit the field, it's going down, Chad Kelly, number 1 QB, Chad Kelly, the defense ain't seeing me, Chad Kelly. Chad Kelly on the field, yeah, you know it's swag. Touchdown every time that he throw a pass. He might just take off like he Michael Vick. Shake you for the touchdown, yeah, you know he's sick.
Mile High Huddle.